Welcome everyone to another YouTube session. And I am Michael E. Parker, and I am very, very happy to be with you all again, going over a very, very important subject. We're going to be talking about what's the most important thing and why so many entrepreneurs get lost along the way. Now, I want you to keep in mind, if you are an entrepreneur and you want to 10x your revenue, you want to stabilize your business, you want to grow fast, take advantage of a free training that I'm offering now at thepowermember.com/test-drive. And we'll put that in the description for you. Make sure to head over there and get that free training. But I want to today talk about something extremely important. We're talking about what's the most important thing. Entrepreneurs are always dealing with just hundreds of decisions they need to make on a daily basis. And as someone who has been an entrepreneur for over two decades now, I've been, surrounded by so many different decisions, whether that is decisions with respect to financial decisions, people decisions, whether it's dealing with critical strategy decisions. There's so many things that you have to decide on, so many moves you have to make, so many people depending on what you ultimately decide. And so I want to explain to you why in the journey of entrepreneurship, so many people end up getting lost because they lose sight of the most important thing. And that important thing sometimes, next thing you know, you have it and you don't. You hold it and you let it go. And so we have to be really clear about that because sometimes it's not easy to see it. It's not easy to understand it. I want to welcome all of you here today that are with me here live, and so many of you that will see this later. This is, again, a very critical element that all of us need to tap into as entrepreneurs to make sure we actually, make sure that our businesses, actually get where they need to go. Now, I want to pull up my whiteboard here for a minute, and you all that are normally with me, I love to pull up my whiteboard and talk through things. And I want to actually walk through a few things and really make sure that you are clear on how a few things work. Now, when you think about, really everything that we deal with as entrepreneurs, we're going to use kind of an analogy here for a minute. We're going to use an analogy here. And I want you to really consider, let's first take the fact that we're on a journey here. And so I'll draw a car here of some sort. And so I don't know what kind of car we got here. This car is a little too big. I want to be able to write some other stuff around it. But let's think a little bit about, maybe a car, right? And, we think about a car and, we want that car to take us wherever we're trying to go, right? And we're on our way wherever we might need to go. And we think about, all of the things that, we have to do. And we think about, being on the go, thinking about, where exactly, we need to actually, travel towards whatever that thing is. We're always on the go. We're always on the move. And we want to, make sure that we are, actually able to keep a business moving. But when you think about the vehicle, I'm going to say there are some people in this vehicle, right? And, I don't know if I need to get kind of 3D here and think about, if we actually have our car here and we've got people in this vehicle where, let's say we've got David here is driving, right? Let's say we've got Sarah over here, and then we got Bob, and over here we actually got a full car here. Let's say this is Melissa. Okay, so we got a car full here, and when you think about being in this vehicle and this car is on the move, that's why part of it is out the screen, is moving, right? Now, I often take entrepreneurs through this exercise because there's a very important lesson to learn about this. And I want you to think about when you look at this vehicle and it's on the go, it's traveling, and David is driving along here, and he's got some passengers with him, just often like we are in our companies, and we've got a team with us, helping us get where we want to go, helping us try to, get where is necessary. And one of the things when you think about a vehicle, right? And our business is a vehicle. That's essentially what it is. Our business is a vehicle that provides solutions, provides products. It does all these different things. And we use a team to do that. And there's always somebody who has to, be the main driver to make sure the business is doing what it's supposed to do. Now, let's just think about the pieces of a vehicle and think about that question: what's the most important thing? And I want you to think about the relevance of, so many things. We have some fun here, some of the things that are to do with, a vehicle and how it translates to a business. Now, there could be a case made for everything, right? But let's look at the trunk here, right? And, let's say the trunk, what could that represent in business? The trunk could represent things that our business holds, right? Whether that's inventory, maybe it's a place where we store inventory. Maybe inventory is, what we use to make money, like we're able to sell that thing, right? So, it's very important to have some stuff there that you have available, that you're taking with you, that's available, that can travel and be given to others. And so, this is definitely something very important. We all have some level of inventory in our business, and we have to have a place to hold that inventory, whether that's a storeroom, a stock room, whether that's something that you have that is digital, like you have different assets that you can use and you can sell online. But essentially it's something, it's stuff, right, that you can use to help further the business. But I want you to understand that, this is not the most important thing. Definitely, this is important, but this is not the most important thing. Let's go a little bit deeper though. Let's deal with the tires. Now, tires are really critical. Tires really give us the ability to move, right, forward in a sense. You can't roll forward without those tires being there, right? But, as you start thinking about that and just thinking about there's momentum, that a business has to have, it has to get to the point where it's rolling. It's not just something, that is, there, but it's actually rolling along. It's actually starting to do things, right? It's actually going somewhere. And so this is important because, tires is, something that gives us, the ability to, let's say, roll forward. So you definitely want to roll forward in your business. You have to roll forward. You have to keep things, traveling forward. So we know that that is also extremely important, but it's not the most important thing. Now, think about this, like, if we were to really go down deep inside this car, there's some things, on the inside here that actually act as brakes, to the tire, and they can come in and help this car to actually stop, if necessary. And so I would submit to you that, brakes are very important in business. Again, this is realizing it's time to stop something. So realizing it's time to stop is very important in business. Sometimes when people make a big mistake in business is that once you know that something is not working, stop it right away. Get out of there. Don't keep it going. I've learned that through experience, that you sometimes try to keep something going, you try to keep rolling along, and you should really pump the brakes. You should really stop what you're doing. You should really stop spending money, stop spending time, stop spending energy, stop spending all of the anxiety that goes along with that thing that is not working. And so sometimes even if you hire someone and you realize that that person is not a fit, the quicker you can stop that situation, let it be known that that's not a fit, the easier it will be. The longer you wait, the longer you go further, the longer you drag it out, the harder it's going to be when you still have to hit those brakes. So you have to be able to, hit the brakes. You got to be willing to say no. You got to be able to say that it just doesn't work, that this is something that's not good for the business. Without that, you're going to end up in a situation where you'll regret it and you're going to waste a lot of time, right? So very, very, critical. Now, I want to, maybe let's go a little bit deeper in here. Now, we can't fully see everyone in here, I don't know. Maybe we got some seats in here and stuff. And, Sarah's here sitting here and she's got her hair coming out. We can't fully see her here, but Sarah's in there. And in there, in all of our vehicles, we have this seat belt that goes across that really helps us with some safety. Now, you gotta have, when you think about a seat belt, you think about safety, right? And risk. Now, this is very important in business because, you have to spend time, especially on the different, depending on the type of business you have. If you don't have safety measures in place, if you're dealing with food and you don't make sure that you're following certain protocol that you can help, you basically can make someone sick because you didn't do things properly, you didn't keep things sanitized. If you're dealing in an industry that deals with, providing someone something that if that thing doesn't work properly, someone can actually injure themselves, hurt themselves. And this goes from internally, inside of the company, as well as the product or the service you deliver. There's got to be these seat belts that are in our business, got these things, these safety measures, these things that actually help us to make sure we keep things safe, we keep people safe. Because without that, if you don't know the areas where there's potential problems, if you're a coach and you advise someone the wrong way, right? You're trying to help people. You might be a health coach, you might be a fitness coach, but there's an issue if you don't tell them the right thing. So you got to make sure that you have some safety belts there, that here's certain things I don't get into. Here's certain disclosures I have where I tell people that you should consult your physician about this. If you're dealing with something where you're helping someone with their money or with investments, make sure you have the proper safety belt there to tell them when they should consult a lawyer, when they should talk to their CPA. You have to know in your business where you need those safety measures, where you have those things that you want to be extremely careful about, because this will put you out of business. There are people who ignored safety and it literally destroyed their business. Now think about the businesses. A lot of things we're seeing now with hacking and people's data being breached. You have a business that involves data and things of that sort, and then you realize that there's been a breach. You actually have breached someone's business because you didn't have the proper things in place. And the safety belt is not just making sure that nothing goes wrong. The safety belt is also what to do when things go wrong. So keep that in mind. In business, things will go wrong. Things will happen. There are going to be things that come up. So we have to be aware that, you have to have something in place. Well, what is your safety belt? What are those areas that you need to protect? All right. So we're dealing with some good things here, and we're still talking about something here. I'm going to show you, hopefully you're getting the correlation here, the analogy here. Now I know that there's, a lot of different elements, but there's a big element that I know we all are aware of. And let's go deep inside of this vehicle here, and let's say that there's on the inside here, we've got this complex, engine, that's in here. and it's doing certain things on the inside here. This is what really, drives the power, right? So here we've got our, let me go to my color here. We've got our engine now. And this is where the horsepower, right? This is what's going to give us speed, right? So, I mean, this has to be important. I mean, my goodness, the engine is what gives you the power to move. Now, there's a lot of ways we could think about engine. Now, and I don't know if some of my screen there might be covering the word there, but hopefully you all can follow here. But I want you to think about the engine, right? You think about that, that engine, right? Revving it up. There's got to be an engine in a business, right? And that's, a lot to do with, how much, energy and motivation is driving that business. The people are motivated to allow you to work and create speed because you got some horsepower in that business, right? Everyone's energy is really revved up. People are motivated to get work done. They're motivated to solve problems. They're motivated to fulfill what that business was built for. And when you have that, you're going to see something where you start recognizing that, you're able to, get things done faster. You're able to move faster in that journey. So some people, it took them, 2 months to reach a particular goal. For you, it took 2 weeks. Right? 2 days for some, because you got a motivated team. You also, not just motivation and energy, but also this can have a lot to do with your systems, right? So the systems you have in place is allowing you to move faster, it's allowing that engine to go. And so this is, again, very, very critical, because you have to realize that if I can drive that engine in that business, we're going to meet our goals faster. We're going to accomplish things quicker. We're going to outdo the competition. So we want to rev that engine up. We want to keep the team inspired. We want to keep people fired up to be successful. But we also want systems that we don't have to work faster, but the work moves faster. So I want you to understand that there's a difference between working faster and the work moving faster. That's what we want. So having very strong lean operations will allow you to actually accomplish that. You'll be able to, actually do that. You'll be able to see how all those things are related. Now, I want to remind you, if you have not subscribed to this channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you click those notification bells. Make sure you leave comments. And also, if you want to enjoy some free training from me that will help grow your leadership and support your growth and development, make sure you go over to thepowermember.com/test-drive. And we'll put that in the description for you. If you want to make sure, if you're seeing this and watching this, go over there and get some free training that I'm giving out for leaders right now that are entrepreneurs. Very priceless. Now, let's go deeper. I want y'all to consider this now. Now, the engine, although it's got to be way up there in importance, it has to be, but it's still not the most important thing. It's not the most important thing. Now, I want you to consider that one of the things that's related to the engine is inside of this engine, we no doubt have oil, that is running through the vehicle. Now, we know the oil is like the lifeblood of the car. I mean, if the oil is not working, if the oil is not being, adjusted, if the oil is not actually lubricating the engine, nothing works. I feel this has a lot to do with company culture. So company culture is like the lifeblood that runs through a business, right? And I hope you see this. We're talking about how this all is running. And I'm telling you about the test drive you can take at thepowermember.com/test drives, test-drive. And it's correlating with this car and how we're driving here, because I want you to understand something about leadership and culture, that if you don't have strong leadership, if you don't have a strong culture, this is where a lot of people today, I see all kinds of people online. Everyone's advertising that they can help you make money. They can help you, generate wealth, income. Very few of them have ever started a business. Very few of them have ever run a company. Very few of them have had ever over 5 people working with them, right? I remember having up to 200 people on my team. Now I have a team of about 50, but think about it. If you haven't really run and driven something, you don't know how to keep oil in the car because you've never had to do it. And you can even be selling something over and over online. You don't really have a business. You just continually promoting the product and making some money. You can do that with anything, a lemonade stand, whatever. And it could even be a lot of money. But is that going to last? All you're doing is continually promoting and hoping that people will keep coming buying the same thing from you. But if you actually built a company that is actually able to move, and it has oil and it has culture, it has something in it where the people know how to work together, the people know how to solve problems together, the people know how to fix issues that come up, that people know how to, actually make things right when they go wrong. They know how to work through storms. They know how to stick with the vision when the vision gets tough. They know how to work when things get hard. Now you got something. Now you don't just have an engine that has oil. So that oil lubricates the engine. It causes that car to be able to go and go and go and go. When that oil gets, bad, when it's time to change it, and what do we mean it's time to change the oil? Sometimes we have to change a certain thought pattern that's gotten to the business. Sometimes we have to change habits that is in the business. I always talk about culture. It has to do with what you do consistently, right? What you celebrate, what you allow, all those things. Those 3 things is what creates culture. What I allow, what I do consistently, and what I celebrate. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter the logos you have on the wall. I don't care how many mission statements and cute things that you say, in theory about your business. What is happening in the business is the true culture of the business. It's the real oil of the business. And if you don't change your oil, that vehicle will stop. So this has to be extremely, extremely important, and yet it's not the most important thing. Not the most important thing. So I want you to consider this. This is key. Now, think about inside here. I'm kind of going in and out of the car. We're on the outside and the inside, but somewhere over here with David, down, let me get my other color here, but down beneath there, somewhere in there, David actually has a gas pedal, right? So down here, we kind of talked about the brake, but somewhere down in here, David's got a gas pedal, right? And that gas pedal, whenever you hit that gas pedal, right, you put your foot on that gas pedal, if he gets his foot on here, starts to make some decisions with that foot, right? Once you begin to step on the gas, right, this is a really critical element because, again, this is definitely related to knowing when it's time to accelerate, okay? So the ability to accelerate is so important in business. And what this means is once I know something is working, once I know something is actually getting the result that we want, it's generating the lead, it's generating the sales, it's getting people's attention, it's causing success, it's generating revenue. Well, I want to accelerate that. So a lot of times entrepreneurs make this mistake. They get bored with what's working. They get bored with what's working. And so we have to be watchful of that. And it's a very dangerous attribute because you can get bored with what's working instead of accelerating what's working, adding more to it, push the gas pedal. It's working, right? So we want to notice when those things are working, and we want to give it gas so that we can move forward even more. We can push even further. We can get even more done. So this is extremely important, right? To know that, you know, we have to be able to hit that acceleration, right? We got to be able to push, and we only want to push those things that are working, those things that are actually working, those things that you know are getting results. So the gas pedal is about accelerating results, accelerating outcomes, benefits, things that are working in the business. We have to be able to do that. Now, so, and yet, this is still not the most important thing. To be able to accelerate that business for us, not the most important thing. Now, you know, definitely critical and definitely tied to that engine. You know, the engine isn't the most important thing. The gas pedal definitely can't be, right? Now, there's something else in here. Now, this has to be something in high regard and consideration. Now, we know inside this car, let me get my right color here. We're back in our car drawing here. And so here we've got our dashboard coming across, and sticking out here is our steering wheel that's in here. Now that steering wheel, now come on now, that steering wheel's got to be a critical thing, because this is where we steer the business, right? So this is how I can steer the vehicle. So when we think about the ability to steer, right, the business. Now this is, I have to admit, this is pretty powerful, right? Steering the business is, you know, you almost can't get no more important than that, you would think, because this is deciding, right, if we turn left or right or keep straight, right? So you have a few different options. You can turn, you can keep straight. You know, all these things are definitely critical. So you would think, you know, this has to be super important, right? I mean, I have to be able to tell the business where to go. So we know that telling the business where to go is, you know, one of the most critical things in an entrepreneur. It's one of the things that gives entrepreneurs power, right? It's what gives us power. We're able to decide where we're, you know, where to turn. All right, let's turn left, let's turn right. And yet, this still is not the most important thing. Now, I know you all saying, oh my goodness, this is getting ridiculous here. Wait a minute, we're dealing with some of the big things here. These are some of the giants, right? And think about it, you know, this is still not the most important thing. And this is where entrepreneurs can lose it. They get too excited about the fact of being called a boss, being called an entrepreneur, a CEO, right? Which means you can turn the steering wheel. But that's not the most important thing. And this is where entrepreneurs, you know, again, we're talking about why so many entrepreneurs get lost along the way, because they don't understand what I'm going over right now. And so you're so excited. You started your business. You've been running your business for a period of time, but you've been running your business from a top-down perspective that you're better than everyone else, and you are in charge. You are the CEO. You are the boss. And that is where you put your self-esteem. That's where you overcome some of your insecurities, because you feel that now you are recognized as someone in charge. And yet this is not the most important thing. And this is why so many entrepreneurs get lost, because they forget that you have to bring people with you. It matters how you treat people. It matters the decisions you make and how it impacts others. It matters about culture. It matters about all these other things we've been talking about. It doesn't matter that you can turn that steering wheel if you do not know everything involved with being a solid leader. I remind you again, leadership is so essential. It's so critical, right? So I want you to understand this, but yet this is not the most important thing. Now, there's something we didn't talk about, which is pretty important. And let's throw that in the mix. You know, what about, you know, up here in your car here, we got a little, you know, rear view mirror here, right? We got a rear view mirror here that is on the car here. And, you know, I'm able to kind of see, you know, what's behind me. So let's just think about, you know, the windows in general, right? So I'm able to, again, being able to look in your rear view mirror, essentially, I'm able to look at past performance. So think about that. When I look through the rearview mirror, I see progress that I have made. I see miles I have passed. I see destinations I have already overcome. So I'm able to look at trends. I'm able to look at performance. I'm able to look at how much money we made. I'm able to look at how many things we got done, right? That rearview mirror is powerful. I'm able to look at history, and that history might help me in terms of how I look out of the front windshield, right? It might make me think about my steering wheel because of the rearview mirror that I have to look in. So having, you know, reports and things that allow me to see what happened in the past. That's what our rearview mirror represents. So even though we got this big, you know, big window in the back of the car, you can't turn around and look at that while you're driving. So the power of the rearview mirror is I'm still looking straight, but I'm able to look and see what happened in the past. So this rearview mirror represents a report. It represents some specific, you know, graph. It can be information. It can be some sort of, you know, assessment of trends. I've got to have a way of looking at it. It could be a software that tracks things, right? Whether, no matter what type of business you have to have a way to do that, right? If you can't do that, how do you even know what you're accomplishing? How do you even know, you know, what you've got done? So this is extremely important. I mean, you wouldn't even know what you got done without it. Well, this still is not the most important thing. So we're, you know, we're talking about so many elements here, right? And yet this still is not the most important thing. All right. I think it's time to reveal. There's more stuff we could talk about in here, and I can keep going with this. But I think it's time to reveal what is the most important thing. Now, I want you to consider something, and we talked about all these different elements, but I want you to consider something, and we're gonna ask David to kind of step out the car here a little bit. Let me get me a thinner. And David here stepping out the car. And he has been in here. He's been driving the car. He's wondering. So I don't know exactly what David looks like here, but we're gonna make David up here. He's been driving the car. So David stepped out of the car here, you know, and he's looking too, saying, hey, what is that most important thing? And I want you to understand that David, he's the driver, and David is able to drive, and he is able to get things, you know, grab the steering wheel. He's in control of the car, right? David's in control of the car. But David still is not the most important thing. Oh my goodness. I know that y'all are saying this is just what is going on here. David, the driver, is not the most important thing. What are you talking about? What do you mean? What do we, I mean, what's left, right? I want to reveal to you the most important thing. The most important thing, it involves the driver, but it's the driver with an address in mind. Oh my goodness, what are we talking about here? You mean to tell me after all we've been through, all we done went through this whole thing, that, oh my God, the most important thing is an address in mind? Why? Let me explain to you something. Without an address, the whole car is meaningless. Let me let that resonate again. Without an address, the whole vehicle means nothing. If you don't have an address, if you don't know precisely where you're trying to go, what is the purpose of the car? A car is not an end, it's a means to an end. So we must understand our business is a vehicle, but if you don't know the address that you're trying to get to, then your business has no meaning. And this is why so many entrepreneurs get lost along the way, because they end up just doing the same thing over and over and over again, and they lose sight of what is the address. Where are we going, right? What is the whole reason I'm in the car? Imagine getting in the car and just driving. You got an engine, you got oil, you got tires, you got a driver. Where in the world are you going, right? So if you're going to the wrong place, or if you don't even know where you're going, what is the purpose of the whole vehicle? Why does the vehicle even matter? There is nothing that is even meaningful when you consider address. So I want you to think about this, that we have to consider, what is the address? Where are we going? So this is what is the most important thing. And you can't get lost along the way when you always know what the address is. And sometimes the address changes because you have been using all these parts of the vehicle. And because of you understand these parts of the vehicle, you type in that navigation and say, this is where we're going. Even the navigation is meaningless without an address. Now just really think about that. What would the car even be used for? Imagine getting in a car and you say, let's go. And everyone gets in, the team gets in, everyone's in there. You have no idea where you're going. All right. So let's talk about this briefly. We think about address. We should think about a few things. I should know my financial address. And this is great. I just recently, just yesterday, I had what's called a CEO address. I hope y'all see the duality there. I mean, this is just too powerful. I had a CEO address where I addressed my entire enterprise and said, this is where we're going. Now, why did I do that? Why is that important? Because the whole vehicle means nothing, and I'm managing a lot of vehicles. I manage several businesses, right? So without a CEO address, now we know address means like to address someone, but it also address means an address, like a destination. But I love the double meaning here, right? Because it is really a CEO address. Where are we going, right? Financial. We have to consider operational, right? Where are we going operationally? Where are we going strategically? It goes on and on. Being able to understand, what is the address? What are the indicators? And I could go on with different types of things that we have to define. You know, we have to describe that place. You know how an address, you know, like an address has the street, the city, the state, it has different, elements to an address, right? And it's no different here. There's different elements to that address, okay? So we have to understand there's different ingredients, different, ways of describing, an address. It's not just one thing. So you have to think about what are those things that I'm making clear to my company in terms of where we're going. Where are we going with culture, right? So we talked about that, like that oil. What are we going to do to keep the culture strong? What are you putting in place? How are things going to happen? How are you going to keep the team connected? That all has to be in that address. You got to have this, the street, the city, the state. What are we doing? What's the condition? What's the way? Street, way. What's the city, right? What state? What condition are we going to be in? Right? I'm using that in different ways here. So I want to leave you with this lastly, and I hope you got a lot out of this talk. But I want you to remember, when you think about destination, there's 4 things that are always extremely important. One thing is, how do I generate leads? Right? Critical. Second most important thing is, how do I convert leads to sales? And because your business is changing, your address may change in terms of the best way to do this, right? The next thing is, how do I deliver product or service in the best way, right? And last but not least, how do I retain my customers? In other words, get them to come back again, right? Repeatability. Extremely important. So when you're thinking about that address, you want to make sure there's some element of what you plan to do in these 4 areas, because all of this, again, is critical if you're going to get to that destination, right? And you got to know where you want to be. So you should have a clear financial target. We're at 100,000 this year. We want to be at 200,000. We're at this many team members. We want to grow our team members to this many team members. We've got, this many things we do to keep the culture strong and team building and things. This is the schedule we're going to use to do that. Here's how the calendar is going to look. All those things describe that address. It describes that destination, so that at the end of the year, again, right? So we back to what we talked about here. We had our vehicle here, right? And when we set out, remember, we have to know what we're trying to get to. And it might be a tough journey, right? But when we get to the end of any year, we have to know, right? Here's the critical question. Did we get there? And you can't answer that question unless you know where there is. All right. Well, listen, I hope you enjoy this session. We've been talking about what's the most important thing and why so many entrepreneurs get lost along the way. I am Michael E. Parker, and I hope that you subscribe. Make sure you give me a like on this video. Come back and leave some comments, what you got out of this video, if it impacted you. And always keep in mind, take advantage of the free training I'm offering right now for entrepreneurs who want to grow in their leadership and get some really secret, shocking things that help you grow your business fast. Go to thepowermember.com/test-drive. and we'll have that in the description for you, and get your free leadership training worth over $5,000. So I want to thank you all for being with me. And I want to invite you, make sure you watch my next video that's going to have a ton of valuable information. And so make sure you watch the next video coming up. I'll see you soon. And I look forward to everything that we're going to do together as entrepreneurs who refuse to quit, who refuse to give up, and we are always striving to get to our destination. I'll see you soon.